Okay, super soft lighting in this. It's getting dark, which is why this crazy looking filter is on, and it makes me look about 20 years younger than I actually am. Anyway, comments yesterday on yesterday's video about the behaviour of the other dogs and their people. Okay, there's a number of things going on there. I'm going to try and cover them in as much or as quickly as I possibly can. So the first things that I look at are what's reasonable. Okay, that's the first question that I look at. So is it reasonable for me to have is it reasonable for me to go to the park that I work at, which is an off-lead dog park, and expect not to run into other people and their dogs, and other people and their dogs with various levels of training. Okay, so I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think that's a reasonable thought to have, that I can walk into that park and not deal with other dogs. Okay, now if I'm 100 metres away at the tree line, where you sometimes see me working in the videos, away from the trails or the paths where people normally walk, I think it's perfectly reasonable at that distance, 50, 60, 70 metres or beyond that, for people to have enough control over their dogs that their dogs don't leave them and come into our space. Okay, so that's reasonable. Okay, now next question about my behaviour, about what's reasonable for me. So is it reasonable for me to have an untrained dog? Okay, and the dog in the video last night, yesterday, he's just young and goofy, that's all he is. But I also work with dogs that have got aggression and reactivity problems. Is it reasonable for me to have that dog in a space where other people are going to bring their social dogs? Okay, and I would suggest no, it's not reasonable for me to have that. Okay, so we have to, lots of the comments, and this is, there's not me judging anybody, okay, because I had to work through this and learn this stuff myself. Lots of that stuff is, I get so annoyed. I get so annoyed when other people can't control their dogs. So the last two videos that we put up, the one with the golden retriever from yesterday with Geo, and the one from Oreo, which is the big collie, border collie looking dog, I deliberately took those two dogs into a place where I knew that there was heavy dog traffic, and I did so because both of those dogs were super friendly. Okay, so I was exposing a friendly dog, two friendly dogs, okay, in order to train the dog that we are working with, how to interact appropriately and how to not interact or to disengage when the social interaction was happening. Okay, now I took the dog into that position, all right, where other people were going to be walking past. It's now up for me to deal with that. It's not up to the person to deal with that. Okay, the other thing as well there is I'm standing still. If I didn't want those dogs to interact with us, I'd have started to move away. Okay, and that's what happens often with us if we're working with our own dog and you're walking down through the path and dogs come, that dog's coming this way, we're going that way, and the social interaction is short. Okay, whereas those videos I put up yesterday and last week were longer. Okay, now I remember this, I know I talk about my my service in the police often, but it's because it illustrates a lot of stuff. Okay, I learned lots of stuff about human behaviour and dealing with conflict during my time in the police. I remember once as a young cop, a guy had, I can't remember what happened. Okay, I think he'd been put out of a nightclub, or yeah, I think that's what it was. He'd been put out of a nightclub and he was wanting to remonstrate with us about his treatment from the stewards, and there was nothing criminal. I don't think he had his jacket or something like that. He wanted somebody to vent to, okay, and we were there. So my neighbour, my partner, the old hat, okay, he then said, let's just go. We're just going to walk off, okay. And he said, if we're not there, he can't argue with us, all right, that's a really valid observation to have. So if we weren't there yesterday, in a place where people are allowed to be, and we weren't stationary with a dog who is learning the skills necessary to be in that position, we caused all that stuff. We did, right? They didn't cause it, okay? Now, if I'd have been 70 odd metres away from the path, as I'd explained earlier, and their dogs would have come in, I would have said, yeah, that's on them, okay? But it wasn't on them, it was on us, okay? So that's the first thing, right? Now, the next thing that I look at is my interactions. If I get annoyed, and a couple of people had made comments about they're learning how to be as patient as I was, and I had to learn how to be patient. I didn't used to be as patient as I am now, okay? I'm working with the client. I'm trying to coach the client through something that they're finding difficult. I'm trying to help them help their dog who's finding it difficult, okay? I'm trying to be as the least amount of intrusive to the other person with the other dog, okay? And I'm trying not to make them feel bad. Now, I don't worry about, I don't deliberately make them feel bad, but I also don't help mitigate their embarrassment and stuff. Again, we were there, okay? It was us that was there, and we were at a place where I knew they were going to come across they were going to cross our path, and again, deliberately put ourselves in that position, okay? So, what does me getting upset or annoyed achieve? Does it help the client? Absolutely not. Does it help their dog? No, because now everything got weird and strange. Does it help the person? No, it doesn't. I'm not so worried about the person, okay? But I'm worried about their dog, or I'm concerned about their dog, because what will happen is, if I start saying to them, get your dog under control, they start getting annoyed, and guess who bears the brunt of that? Their dog, right? And if the whole purpose of us training positively is to try and make life better for dogs, then we have to learn how to regulate our emotions around other people and their dogs, so that they don't take that out on their dog, okay? And when I got that clear in my mind, it helped hugely of this notion of I can remain calm, okay? And if it got really bad there, all I'd have done was walk off, and I'd have walked in the opposite direction from where that group of people were, okay? And their dogs would have gone back to them. And if the dog didn't go back to them, I'd have dealt with that too, okay? Lastly, I saw a video recently, and it was a trainer who uses aversive training methods. So I didn't look on this, I don't go looking for stuff. Somebody had shared it, and I looked at it, and they were walking down through the park similar to where I work, and there was 3 little dogs, and one of the dogs started vocalizing and moving towards the dog that this guy was working with, and he had to deal with it, okay? The dog that he was working with was going through similar issues, okay? He could just have moved over to the side, kept coaching the client and gone about his way, but his ego, and it's always our ego, okay? It's our ego, that offense that we feel, that's your ego talking, right? His ego kicked in, and he had to say something, and he was obnoxious and rude and aggressive towards the person with the little dog. And go back to the point I've just made, guess who's paying the price of that? Guess who's paying the price for his aggression? That little dog, okay? And it's not that little dog's fault that guy was there, and it's not that little dog's fault that their owner let that dog off the lead in a position where they couldn't do anything else, okay? So hopefully that's helped clear some of that up, okay? No doubt we'll have to revisit it again, which is totally fine. That's what this page is for. And hopefully that's been useful. And lastly, very, very, very lastly on it, I'm not having a go at anybody who commented on this thing. I used to think like that, okay? And I had to work through my own stuff in order to achieve the position that I'm in just now, which I've just tried to explain. And it's not easy, okay? Because we all have bad days. All right, catch you soon.